What is up, my people? How we doing today? I'm gonna be driving today, so for those of you who are, have sensitive ears, or let them bitch ears, I might wanna go watch somebody who's not doing shit and ain't busy, ain't got shit going on. We're gonna be talking about boxing today. We're gonna be talking about the weigh-in. This wasn't the weigh-in, by the way. This is I think like 2 days before or something like that. And I was just wanted you guys to look at this and then take a mental picture of it, and then I'm gonna show you what he looked like on the weigh-in. I'm pretty sure you guys seen it already, but it's just interesting to me personally. But before we get into that, before we get into Tank versus Frank Martin, I want to talk a little bit about the other fight, the other big fight, which is Vlasnik versus David Benavidez. And yeah, guys, I don't know. I'm having second thoughts about that one because I don't know if you guys saw my prediction before. I had Benavidez winning. I didn't say how, I didn't say if it was going to be a knockdown or anything like that. I actually reserved that part. Here's the thing, guys. After watching the weigh-in, after watching them side by side to each other, I'm not going to change my mind, but I am questioning my decision. This is part of the reason why I always say it would be better to make bets after the first round. Because you really it's really like that. It's like you really can't tell, because everything changes night by night, day by day. The closer the fight comes, there's things that start changing, and you start seeing more and more things, and it's like, it's really hard to predict, really. But I'm still gonna stick to Benavidez, but just looking at them side by side, just like I said, it just made me think. It's kind of like, I don't know if you guys have seen that meme where they have a husky, and the husky is next to a actual wolf, and the meme says, "I didn't know, wolves were that big," and that's pretty much what it is, guys. It's just side by side, it just looks different. Now listen, size is not everything, guys. But what requires you to beat the size difference is skill. Skill is what is needed to beat bigger opponents. That is what is needed. And if you don't have it, you don't have some kind of thing that allows you. And what I mean by thing is, like, maybe you have power, and that helps you when you move up. But if you don't have power, then you better have skill. You better have some kind of, like, ability or something that that allows you to be better than these guys. And maybe Benavidez does have that. We don't know. That's the thing, is that we don't know. And we're just going to have to see. Now, this time I'm going to retract a little bit, because at the beginning I was absolutely sure that Benavidez wins. And the reason I was absolutely sure that he wins is because mentally I just felt like Vosnik was not there. Vosnik was just not up to the challenge. He just seemed like he was a beaten man. The interviewer would ask him questions, and he was like, "Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens." The interviewer was trying to gas him up, and he was like, "Nah, I'm not all that." It's like, bro, it's like, come on, man. And I know some people see that as confidence, but just to me, the way it just didn't seem like he was confident in himself. But the thing is, in a fight, bro, you could sometimes you doubt yourself. Sometimes you're like, damn, I don't know if I could do it, whatever. It's normal. But if you're good at something, the closer you get to the fight, the less nervous you become. It's like what Mike Tyson said. Yeah, you get nervous. There is fear, there is doubt. But once you're in there, everything you've done just takes over. Everything you've practiced takes over, and it's just like you're just moving in there. So it may not be that big of a factor, the fact that he doesn't really think he can win. I don't know. Just looking at the side by side just made me kind of, think that maybe Vosnik has a better chance than I originally thought. So we're just gonna have to see, man. I mean, I don't know. I don't think Benavidez is a skillless fighter. I don't think that. His style of fighting is I don't know how to explain it, but it's not a bad style. It's very it requires you to control your opponent with your strength, right? The thing is, can he do that skill on somebody who he can't control with his physicality? That's my thing, bro. That is definitely my question, when it comes to Benavidez, man. Because his style is very similar to George Foreman, and that's how I see the style. Now, I'm not comparing him to George Foreman. I don't want some of you, so-called connoisseurs to come out at me. How dare you compare him to the great George Foreman? And I'm like, I'm not comparing him, you dumb bitch. I'm just saying the style is similar. That's all I'm saying. Relax. But the thing is, yeah, you got to be strong. And you gotta really, really oversize your opponents. And that's what George Foreman always had. He always had that oversizing ability. Of course, there's skills and techniques that go into it. If you study George Foreman, you study boxing, you'll realize that it's not just him being heavy. He knows how to control his weight. He knows how to use his bigness to make people run away from him. And yeah, there's a skill to that for sure, man. So it's not just. Now, the thing is, does Benavidez has that presence? Because you don't have to have necessarily the strength or the size. If you have that presence that George Foreman had, meaning that presence of menacing presence, you can make them move out of the way, and you can make them tire themselves out. Does Benavidez have that? Or was it all just physical advantages that he had because he was always bigger? And that's the question. That's really what we're asking here. But we'll see, man. We will see. Like I said, I'm still leaning towards Benavidez. But we just have to see, man. Moving on to Frank Martin versus Tank. And guys, this is another thing where I already had Tank winning. Okay. But now I think it could be like a murder, to be honest with you, because looking at Frank, a couple of days after watching him on a press conference, and just looking at the weight difference and the weight cut that happened between then and now, and then thinking about if there's a rehydration cloth or not, I'm not sure, but it just doesn't look good for Frank. The last time I saw something like this, it was Erik Morales versus Manny Pacquiao, and it was two. Erik Morales versus Manny Pacquiao 2. And the first fight, Erik Morales had beat Manny Pacquiao. But of course, the powers that be weren't gonna let that slide, so they rescheduled another fight. I think there was already a rematch clause. But in that fight, they drained him. They drained Erik Morales. He came in, dude, he looked like he was dying, dude. And people didn't care. They're like, oh, fuck him. Fucking, he's just a Mexican. So that's what I'm saying. Like, bro, like, the powers that be, the people that are behind boxing or whatever, they choose a guy off the bat. They choose a guy who they want to win. And they choose a guy who they want to lose. And they do everything they can to protect the guy that they chose, which in this case is Tank Davis. Frank Martin is not just up against Tank, he's up against the people that are backing Tank. Now some of you are going to be like, oh, it's his fault, he signed the contract, but I'm just saying, like, every time we see Tank fight, he's always fighting a drained fighter. And if it's not a drained fighter, it's a midget. A midget to him, just think about that. A midget to him, bro. So I don't know, man. It's like you got to think about this type of stuff and start thinking about: Are we really seeing the best of the best, or are we really seeing the best strategists? Which is fine. It's fine. Okay, I get it. The art of war. Boom, bop. The fight starts before you even lace them up, before you even get in the ring, before you even sign the contract. You have already studied your opponent. I get it. But it also makes it seem like you don't think you can beat that guy. It also makes it seem like you have to do all of these, extra things to make sure that you don't lose. It makes it seem like you're not all that, But I don't know, guys. And you know what's funny? People always talk about, especially with the Ryan Garcia versus I forgot his name already. Haney. Bradley was the one talking about, it has to be an even playing field. It wasn't an even playing field. And my response to that was, like, when is it? When is it ever an even playing field? It never is. It never is. And we see it today with this fight. Of course, Bradley's not going to say anything about this one because Bradley's racist. Yeah, I said it. Tim Bradley is racist. Oh, but he has a Mexican wife. It don't matter, bro. You could have a Mexican wife or a white wife or a black wife and still be racist. I think Bradley is like a competitive racist guy. He's not racist like outside of boxing, but inside of boxing, he is racist. So that means he's competitive racist, which is a thing, believe it or not. But the reason I say he is because he's not saying shit about this. This isn't an even playing field. Look at Frank Martin. Look at the way he looks, bro. Do you think it's an even play? Bro, like conquerors used to do this to people that they knew they couldn't beat. You know that's how they beat the Aztecs, right? The Aztecs, the Spanish couldn't beat them. Even if the Spanish had all the best guns in the world, they had horses, they had armor, they still couldn't beat the Aztecs, bro. The Aztecs were just too good. They were too slick. And not only that, but they had more numbers. They had numbers on their side. So they just couldn't beat them. So what did the Spanish do? They cut off the bridges to the city, and they just waited them out. The people started starving. They started dying off. Then finally they were like, "All right, let's make some kind of deal or something. My people are starving." Boom, bah. Next thing you know, they're in the city, like destroying everything and killing the Aztecs. Why? Because they were starving. Imagine warriors that haven't eaten. Plus you got armor. Plus you got horses. Plus your enemies are on my side now. Because that's what happened too. All the other tribes joined the Spanish. So all of that put together, now you lost the war, and now that's it. They're not the only ones that did that. There's others that did the same thing. You know, it's a very common tactic in warfare. And now you got it here in boxing, you know, the same way. So it's like, and there's the thing, bro, like, at the same time, I understand the nature of the beast, and I understand that it's never fair. It's never an equal playing field. It never is. So, even in that sense, I understand that it never is. And that's the difference between me and someone like Bradley, who is a hypocrite and uses the even playing field narrative to excuse the fact that he never gets anything right. The fact that all his predictions are always wrong. The fact that he's always picking the black fighter or whatever. You can't predict fights if you're always predicting with your feelings, bro. You know? But in this fight here, man, I like I said, Tank, of course Tank's going to win. A lot of people think Frank Martin's going to pull up an upset because supposedly he hurt him in sparring. Bro, like I said before, sparring is sparring, fighting is fighting, boxing is boxing. It's not the same, bro. Like, this is why I always say, when people say, can this guy beat this, can this style beat this other style? It's hard to say, because what are we talking about? Are we talking about in a tournament setting where there's rounds? Or are we talking about no limit rounds, meaning the round doesn't end and somebody gets knocked down? Are we going to be on concrete? Are we going to be on a ring? Are we going to be... all of that stuff matters, dude. It's just different type of fighters. Look, one time I was, and I hate to talk about myself, but one time I was fighting a guy. He was a Taekwondo guy, but he was also in MMA. So he knew some wrestling, and he added some stuff to his repertoire. His punches sucked. Okay, he was not a good puncher. But when he started kicking my ass. I couldn't reach him. He had better reach with his legs. His legs were longer. I didn't know how to use my legs that well because I hadn't used them in a while. I also practiced Taekwondo in the past, but I was just rusty. You know, it wasn't the same. And And within the fight, I had to adapt, which thankfully I am able to do a lot of times. But for like the first 2 rounds, he was just, he was just showing off. He was doing all kinds of crazy kicks, side kicks, spinning side kicks. It was just crazy, he was good. All right, and it didn't hurt me, but it hurt my ego. I was like, damn, this guy is like Bruce Lee over here, right? But I started noticing something within those 2 rounds. And I started noticing that he was thinking like a pugilist. Now, how does a pugilist think? Number one, a pugilist thinks, most pugilists, most people that are in sports and fighting and stuff like that, they think defense and then offense, or offense and then back to defense. That's one point of mentality of a pugilist or a trained fighter. Number two, they think in terms of, I call it the 3-point rule. Meaning there's these spots in the body where he's thinking of hitting you. All right, when it comes to the lower extremities, he's thinking about hitting you on the sides, which is 1, 2, and then the solar plex, that's 3. And I'm getting somewhere, I promise. And in the head, he's thinking about hitting you somewhere in your mouth, in your temples, or somewhere on your chin, which is what those two are almost the same, right? So I call it 3-point mentality, because all martial artists that do point, not just point fighting, but just pugilistic fighting in general, that's what they think. Now, to a martial artist or somebody who's somewhat of a street fighter, he's not thinking like that. He's thinking everything is allowed. Meaning, if I hit your arm, I'm going to hit your arm. And I'm going to try to hurt your arm. Everything is a target is what I'm trying to say. Your arm is a target, your legs is a target, your knees a target, your joints are a target, your hands, your fingers are a target. Whatever I can hit, I could reach, I'm going to try to hurt. Why is that important? Is because this guy was protecting his points, his 3 points very well, and I could not reach him. I could not reach him to the body. I could not reach him to the head. He was protecting those things very well. So what I had to do is think outside of the box. I had to start hurting his arms. I had to start hurting his leg, like his knee, his when he threw punches, I would go for the joints on the way in. I started hitting him in the hands, and then little by little his hands started to hurt. So I was kicking him to his hands. I started kicking him in the hands. Boom, boom, boom. And the way that I did that is I remembered Bruce Lee when he fought that one karate guy, he started hitting him in the hands. And so I did that. I was like, I'm going to start hitting this guy in the hands. And his hands started to hurt. So I could tell because he kept moving his hands out of the way. So then now, after that happened that was in 1 round. And I was like, all right, so now he's starting to open up his stomach more. So now I could start thinking like a pugilist again. Now I could start hitting him to the gut. And that's what I did. I started hitting him to the gut because he opened up, right? And then I started hitting him to the calf muscle, because that's what I could reach, because he was too good. So I started hitting him to the calf muscle. So guess what? He can't walk no more. So now guess what's happening? Now I'm winning. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, the mentality of, and I'm not saying that it's better. I'm just saying the mentality of a guy who is not thinking about the pureness of combat. Who's thinking just about how can I solve this puzzle like a Street Fighter. And I know I sound like, oh, like, I sound like Street Fighters are better. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it's just different. It's a different game, dude. It's different. Everything, all of this stuff goes into consideration when it comes to a fight. You know? And that's why I think Tank Davis is gonna win. It's too much things that are on his side. And in order to beat someone like Tank, you're gonna have to think differently. And I don't think someone like Frank Martin thinks that way. He doesn't have the mind of a guy who's mean, of a guy who's gonna go in there and hurt you. You know, he has the mind of a pugilist. And I'm, like I said, I'm not saying that it's not good. I'm just saying, bro, like, you can't beat a guy like Tank like that. You know, you just can't. But anyways, guys, that is going to be it for today. Those are pretty much my predictions. They're going to stay the same. Kind of, I guess. Yeah, they're pretty much the same. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys.